to get a grip on what they call uncontrolled irregular migration. So far this year, more than 14,000 people entered Germany illegally via the border with Poland. Local authorities say reception centers cannot cope with the pressure. Local lawmakers want Berlin to set up permanent border checks. DW reporter Matthew Moore went on patrol with federal police in the town of Forst on the border with Poland.
It's the crack of dawn on the German-Polish border, and police on patrol here have barely had time to wake up before their first call-out. 8 men, all from Syria, dropped off with nothing more than the clothes they're wearing.
At the moment, this is a daily occurrence in South Brandenburg. We have to deal with smuggled people every day.
The men are taken to the police station to begin the long process of applying for asylum. Back on the road, and before long, a report has come in. Trespassers have been spotted on a train track in the middle of nowhere. Railway workers try to help. Eventually, the group is found. Dumped in the forest by a smuggler who fled. But we can't hang around because we're called to respond to reports of a suspicious van. The cargo is all too familiar, but nevertheless shocking. 30 people, including 2 children, pile out. Most are from Syria and have made the journey via the Balkans. But often it's not an easy job for police to work out who is trafficked and who is trafficker.
The driver is an 18-year-old Syrian who is in the asylum process here in Germany. After a short escape, where he fled on foot, he was arrested.
You only have to look at the inside of this van to get a sense of how dire the journey was. There's banana skins, empty bottles, nuts strewn across the floor. There's barely space for 30 people to stand, never mind sit. It's unhygienic, it's uncomfortable, and above all, it's unsafe. Authorities say the number of undocumented migrants crossing Germany's eastern border has risen exponentially in recent months. Regional ministers say they cannot cope.
Our systems are working in overload mode, and the high influx, which is now well over 300, probably 400,000 still to come this year, is causing our local municipal systems to collapse.
He wants fixed border controls, the likes of which have been imposed on the southern German border since 2015. The government in Berlin, however, is not in favour.
The number of illegal arrivals is rising because we don't effectively protect EU's outer border. And if we don't do that, then it will make no difference if we put up stationary border controls everywhere. We will be addressing a problem, but not the causes. That's why it's not the right approach.
Until Europe finds a coordinated approach to border control, human traffickers will continue to exploit holes in the system, and asylum seekers will find the promise of a new life hard to resist.
For more, we can now speak to our political correspondent, Simon Young. Simon, what is the government's plan to deal with the current situation?
Well, the government says that they recognise that the situation with asylum seekers and other migrants arriving is acute and it's difficult. And what they've said, as you heard there, was that they don't believe that just putting more police manpower on the border crossings would help very much. It might be too easy to get round that. What they say instead is, let's keep working for an EU-wide asylum policy, a better one than we've got now. They say that they believe that they can get that even in time for next year's European Parliament elections. But of course, it has been in the works for decades, and it's clearly very difficult to do. The government also says that they are working on agreeing bilateral agreements with individual countries where some of these people come from, if they can be considered as safe countries of origin. So agreements in principle that those people could be sent back. Of course, in practice, it often doesn't work out quite as easy as that.
Simon, a new study just concluded that far-right attitudes are becoming more and more mainstream in Germany. What does this study tell us about people's feelings about migration?
Yes, so this is a study by the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, which is a think tank that's close to the German Social Democratic Party. And they do this study every couple of years, looking at how well anchored sort of liberal democratic values are in German society. So on migration, what they said is that, it does seem that there is a growing trend to more intolerant attitudes when it comes to asylum seekers and migrants. For instance, they say that 40% of people believe that, the German state treats migrants and refugees better than it treats Germans who need help. And another finding, they say people who come from Ukraine are seen much more favourably, they say, by themselves, as talking about mainstream attitudes, than people who come from Syria or Africa. So I think that gives you just a sense that things are, that there may be a somewhat more unwelcoming atmosphere as far as people arriving and asylum seekers is concerned.
What are some of the other takeaways from this study, Simon?
Yeah, some of this is pretty alarming, I have to say, because it does seem to show that there's a growing sort of acceptance in the mainstream of German society for far-right views. So the study says that around 8% of Germans now have what can be described as an extreme right worldview. And what does that mean? Well, it includes things like supporting the idea of a strong Führer kind of figure, a leader who would lead the country in a dictatorial fashion with a strong hand. It's the idea that the goal of German foreign policy, for instance, should be to promote the power and importance of Germany. And in some cases, support for these kind of ideas has tripled just within the last couple of years. Also, the grey zone of those people who sort of say, oh, well, sometimes these ideas are OK and we have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, that's growing too. And another point, young people more and more likely to agree with some of these far-right ideas. In times gone past, of course, there was a much bigger divide between older and younger Germans. That seems to be changing, and worrying results from this study that suggest, in the mainstream of society, these type of far-right ideas are becoming more acceptable.
Worrying trend indeed. Simon Young, thank you.